Welcome back. Now, Judge Tshifhiwa Maumela has postponed the Senzo Meyiwa murder trial today to the 22nd of this month to allow accused number 5 to prepare for the trial. The Bafana Bafana captain was shot and killed in 2014. 5 suspects stand accused of his murder. Let's delve further into this with legal expert Marius du Toit. Thank you very much, sir, for your time on all angles. Now, firstly, we know that the case was postponed already yesterday. I know that we have to afford everybody legal rights, even though you're accused of something as heinous as murder. But could his legal team not say yesterday that today would not give them sufficient time? I mean, they asked for 24 hours yesterday.
Yeah, Mashego, you would usually expect when you have a high court trial sitting before a judge that the parties are well prepared, well in advance in order to run the trial. I heard yesterday that one of the legal representatives said that they were only provided statements at the very last minute, and as a result they didn't have enough time to consult, and it would seem that we had a repetition of that today. But I think it's a reasonable expectation in any matter which is before a court, especially a criminal matter, that the attorneys as well as the accused are well prepared. And of course, that goes right to the root of the matter, which is the right to a fair trial. If I didn't have enough time to prepare properly or adequately, then of course it could encroach upon that right. But to say the least, I think we as the public can expect attorneys to be well prepared. Having said that, in this instance, the court felt that there was merit to postpone it. And that in itself is not something that does not happen often in our court. It does unfortunately happen.
Is it advisable? I mean, I heard the state prosecutor raise a very valid point during the time that the judge was postponing to say the 22nd of April falls on a Friday. Is that even advisable after so many postponements, especially to the families who also deserve justice to be served? Is it advisable to restart on a Friday?
Well, I think we firstly have to say, Mashego, that the courts are sitting every day. So a Friday should be fine, provided the matter runs on that day, starts at the time allocated being 10 o'clock in the High Court, and then runs for the whole day. I'm quite sure that once they have to arrange a date, of course, the parties have to be available, so their diaries have to be available. But this trial would have been set down probably for a month or a month and a half. So any day during this period should be more than adequate for the trial to start. I think you would actually expect the trial to start as soon as possible. We all know justice delayed is justice denied. And it's definitely not in the interest of the family or any person of the public who would like to know what truly happened here to once again have to wait until the 22nd. But to answer your question, it's perhaps not the ideal situation, but obviously that would have been ventilated with the court, and the court would have arranged this date having regard to the opinions of all the legal representatives, making sure that hopefully that matter can start on that day.
I don't know if you saw, Mr. Du Toit, that they had the TRT, that's the Tactical Response Team within the South African Police Service, all over that courtroom, of course, because some of these men, as we saw in that documentary around Senzo, had been accused with up to 6 crimes. I think one of them actually was recently found guilty of 6 murders in the taxi industry. So that's obviously why they have the TRT around there. But I don't know if you heard that, they were asking for all accused to be kept in one prison, but the NPA, or rather Correctional Services, writing to the NPA saying this is a huge risk. Is it because they're afraid of the logistics of moving these accused around and what risk it could impose?
Well, Mashego, we have to understand that these courts are physical hearings taking place in the High Court. So that means those prisoners or waiting trial prisoners have to be transported from the prison authority, being Johannesburg prison, being Pretoria prison, New Lock, depending on where they are. And they have to then be transported to court. And typically, those vehicles are then accompanied by other police vehicles on the way to court. So if you have accused not kept in the same prison system, it of course necessitates various vehicles from various divisions to come through. And especially when you deal with high-risk individuals, when you deal with individuals who've made it clear that they make a life from crime, from a life from armed robbery and murder, and especially where threats have been exhibited in the past, you would expect the state to do everything in their power to secure, number one, that these people attend court, because we've had multiple instances in the past where there's been hijacking of court vehicles on the way to the court so that people can be set free. So I think especially where you have a risk like they have in this matter, you would expect the prison authorities to state clearly that, listen, we believe this might elevate the risk. An elevated risk might result in a person escaping or people trying to set them free, because we all know, when you deal with people committing murder, that they often work in teams or they work in gangs. So I think at the end of the day, we have to say that they want to secure that these people do attend trial, that they do stand their trial, and that they're there for the verdict. And if there's a risk that this person might not come to court, or that the risk of being set free or the risk of being interfered with that process, well, then it could hamper the whole trial to proceed. Because the moment one escapes or the moment one person is set free, that will, of course, necessitate a postponement for that person to be captured. And only at a much later stage would they be able to say, well, listen, we have caught this person. Now we're going to withdraw charges against him. We have a warrant out for his arrest, but now the trial must commence against the remaining 4. So I think it's a practical arrangement just to make sure that this person, at the end of the day, comes to court and that the risk for the state is as low as possible.
Lastly, and very quickly, Marius, there was also a discussion around the lawyer for accused number 1 till 3. He says he has an issue with accused 3 and where he's being kept. How far does our legal system go in terms of protecting people accused of such heinous crimes? He says his client is complaining that his family is too far away to be able to visit him where he's being kept.
I think the difficulty is that your rights as a sentenced prisoner usually entails that you should be kept where your family usually resides or where you have a support system. Because one of the purposes of sentences and serving sentences is, of course, rehabilitation. And for that purpose, it's important that you have a family structure. But when you are awaiting trial, you're not afforded those privileges typically. You are kept in a awaiting trial section, which is either in Gauteng at one of the main prisons, and you are then kept with multiple other prisoners. It might not be ideal. It might, at the end of the day, when you look at the conditions upon which people are being detained, you might think to yourself, well, this is definitely not in line with our Constitution or what the Constitution intended. But at the end of the day, that's unfortunately what we have. And I don't think prison is ever meant to be a place of leisure and a wonderful holiday home. I think at the end of the day, it's there to secure your attendance at court, so that at the end of the day, the court's in a position to pronounce verdict upon you. And I think even though I've often had this, that family have said, listen, we want to be closer to so-and-so that's being detained, unfortunately in practice, especially where there's a trial and the trial is carrying on, then you have to keep them as close as possible in proximity to the court, because you want to transport this person from the prison to the court so that this person can be tried efficiently during the process.
Well, thank you very much for your time on All Angles. I do appreciate it. That was Marius du Toit, a legal expert there on the Senzo Meyiwa case, which has been postponed till next Friday. Now,